Hello and welcome everybody to Ask the Sensei. Ask the Sensei January 2023. We made it, guys. We're in 2023. This is our monthly Q&A webinar we hold at the VO Dojo to learn about the many realms of voiceover and to have your voiceover questions answered by the pros in the field. My name is Jeffrey Gilbank. I'm the membership director here at the VO Dojo. I will be sitting in today for Tish Hicks, our founder and master sensei. She's been called away on urgent family business. So if you have a moment to send a little thought, send a little energy their way, that would be awesome and most appreciated. It's my privilege and honor today to be joined by techno guru sensei Dan Leonard, president of Voiceover, and also our other guest sensei, Mike Brang. So that's a little bit about me. The VO Dojo is a training program, a full 360 degree, taking you on your journey from beginner to expert to working pro. And I'm going to allow these fine, upstanding gents to introduce themselves. Dan, why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself, please?
Why, certainly. Thanks, Jeff, and thanks for filling in this morning. I'm Dan Leonard, the home voiceover studio master. If you have questions about home voiceover studios and not like, okay, which isotope should I use and how many different settings do I need? Ask, or any question like that, I can answer that and get that straight for you, whether it has to do with microphones or acoustics or technique. Any of those things, I am here to answer those questions and lend to the conversation. As Jeff also mentioned, I'm also president of World Voices Organization, WOVO, world-voices.org. Please join because it's worth it. You'll see all the benefits you get from it, and watch Voiceover Body Shop too, which is right there, always on somewhere.
Amazing. Thanks, Dan. I'll throw links to all of those wonderful things in the chat below. And also, folks, this is a Q&A webinar. So as you come up with questions for any of us, really, pop them in the chat and I'll keep track of them to answer later. But before we do that, while you're populating the chat with your wonderful question, yes, VOBS is great. It's a lot of fun. I agree. Mike, I'd love to send it over your way. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and the wonderful work that you do.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, hey guys, my name is Mike Brang. I've been in this exciting field for over a decade now. I've been fortunate enough to voice stuff for some major brands. I love doing it. I don't really talk about myself all too often, so don't expect any words of wisdom from my bio, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Been doing this for, like I said, a decade or more now. Commercial, promo, intro narration, trailer. I've been fortunate enough to do it all. I hope I can lend some advice to you guys and kind of help you as no matter at what stage you are in your career. So hopefully I can do that for you.
Amazing. So fantastic. We are in great company today. If you, I have a couple of questions ready and primed to get us started while we wait for some questions to come in. Also, if you guys go to our YouTube channel at the vodojo.com, you can catch a exclusive Ask the Sensei 21 Questions interview with Mike Brang on our YouTube channel, which is a lot of fun. I won't reference it too heavily, but a lot of the stuff that you said really resonated with me, Mike, on that call, that 21 Questions interview. And the one of the things that kind of came up with some repetition that became a theme was perseverance, patience, the knowledge that it takes time, but it's all going to be okay. And I was kind of wondering, as maybe kind of a follow-up question to that interview and also a jumping off point, how do you find, and Dan, if you have thoughts about this as well, how do you stay confident, stay positive while you're practicing that perseverance? How do you keep from getting overly frustrated while you're making your way or waiting for the next, thing to come your way?
Yeah, it's easy to do. I'm not saying I didn't have moments of frustration because I had a lot of them, especially when I was starting out. But for me, it was surrounding myself with positive people, people that are kind of in it with me. I looked to people that had kind of had they were at where I wanted to be. I talked to them, kind of gleaned from their experiences, and I connected heavily in social media and went to events and stuff around where I live. LA is obviously more kind of like a mixing pot of just everybody. Everyone's here for voiceover and stuff. I don't know where everyone's scattered throughout the country, if it's as big in LA as it is in other places, but you're bound to find somebody in your area. And I leaned on a lot of my friends too that were kind of coming up with me, and the support system there really helped me a ton. So just kind of talking to them about some of the things that I was going through. They were having the same experiences, so I wasn't alone. It can be kind of a lonely business. We sit in our booth and we talk to ourselves all day, and if you can kind of lean on people that are going through the same thing you are, it makes it so it's not, quite as bad.
Totally hear that. Um, Great. So I have my first question. Mike, this one's for Mike. What is your personal favorite category of voiceover? And also, wait, no, sorry, I'm supposed to call on people. I'm forgetting my own format. So how this will happen is I will, as you pose your question, I will call on you and bring you up into the room, and you can unmute yourself and pose your question. If you'd like for me to ask your question for you, just let me know in the chat. So Heidi, you are up first. Go ahead and come into the room and pose your question.
Okay. Hi, Mike. Hi, Dan. Thanks for being here today. Mike, just wondering what your personal favorite is for voiceover. And then maybe for the both of you, where do you think the fastest growing area of voiceover is? Just interested to hear your opinions.
Yeah, it's kind of hard. I love commercial. I do a lot of it. And but I love promo as well. So it's kind of I love them both. I don't know, pretty equally. Promo is very dynamic. It's very engaging. It's very fast paced. And there's a lot of it to do. So I love that aspect of it. I also love the fact that they're short lived, they're short run. You get to do it, quite often throughout the week. And then just, I don't know, commercial I just love because, I mean, it's just, I don't know. I've always had a passion for commercial. I love advertising. I like selling. And not only that, but commercial tends to be, at least for me, the one that kind of sustains me throughout the year and keeps the lights on. So, and a good, fast-growing area of voiceover. If you guys follow the trends in commercial right now, that's shifting quite a bit through SAG-AFTRA. It's really changing things up a little bit. Not so much in the non-union world. I feel like advertising is really kicking up right now, so that's doing really well. But man, I mean, like B2B and the online marketplaces that cast like internal stuff, business to business type stuff. There's tons of that, and I mean a lot. There's people that make six figures a year doing just that. So I feel like that might be a really good area to kind of like to look at when you're looking at things to get done, to do.
Cool. Thanks, Mike.
Yeah, thanks for your question.
Yeah, so my favorite areas of voiceover is whatever they hire me to do.
I feel that.
It's always a matter of, well, I find that if I meditate on it the evening before, I'd really like a spot from somewhere. Generally, it shows up within a day or so. It's pretty amazing. There's a lot of universal laws that come with being in voiceover. I like doing commercials as a former radio production director, so that's always been my forte, but it's just fun no matter what they throw me. And especially if I'm doing stuff in Europe and things like that for odd companies and fun remotes and stuff. Fastest growing trend, I think it's voiceover itself, because there are so many general, genres in the business. I guess the question is, do we want to look at what's hot, or do we want to look at what's hot for you? What is it that's working for you? What is it that you're getting hired for? That's the area you need to exploit, and continue to audition for the other things. And eventually you're going to get a feel for what works for you. So, but what's hot? I mean, there's because the internet is expanding so rapidly, and there's so much on YouTube and some of these other things. There's a lot of potential there. The money may not be as good as it used to be when there were a lot fewer people in it, but if you are aggressive and know your marketing, you should have no trouble being able to get out there and earn some money doing just about anything. I mean, there's a couple of areas I'm like, well, maybe you shouldn't do that because they're not paying, but I won't go into that.
Okay. Well, thanks very much, both of you, for the information.
Awesome. And thank you, Heidi, for the question. All right. So next up, and this is coming from Margaret, I hope I say this right, Margaret Lang, is sick. So I'll pose a question for them. Would like to know a little bit more about the differences between B2B business and B2C businesses. And I'll take it a step further and say, like maybe ask what areas would work better in what different genres of voiceover, as far as like focusing your efforts towards booking and marketing.
I mean, for me, and forgive me, I don't know the term B2C. And when I say B2B, I'm probably encompassing that in there. The differences between them, I wouldn't be able to answer that very well. That might be a Dan question. As far as marketing yourself to those, I find that the best place to get those types of jobs, for me back in the day, were the online marketplaces, and then building clients from there, kind of capturing them, and then just working with them in an ongoing fashion was the best way for me to do that type of work.
Right on. And so like B2B, business to business, and B2C, business to customer. Dan, any other insights as far as that goes?
Well, that's the largest area of anything right now is business to business, because there's so much stuff. Every company that does anything has to be on the internet, and that usually requires video, and that requires narration either by the boss's secretary or a professional voice actor. So it's being able to work business to business type of work is really good. Business to consumer is also a big thing because they have to advertise what they're doing. Business to business is one business advertising their business to another business. Say if they make ball bearings, they're going to want to make a video to someone who makes motors. I mean, that's really what business to business is. Business to consumer is more, general advertising of a product. What's better? Again, what works for you? What are you good at? And where do you find where's your comfort zone in that sort of thing?
Absolutely. And I feel like generally as a voice actor, a lot of our work is going to be catered towards business to business. And those businesses will then use the work that we provide as voiceover to do their business to consumer. They're going to use what we provide in order to create marketing or advertisements to sell their goods to a consumer. For the most part, is that kind of the correct impression, or?
Yeah, I feel that happens quite often. When they pay you for your time and they make that video, yeah, they do kind of send it out to the masses and might cut stuff up to get to B2C. I believe what Dan's saying too is, I follow that too. The business voiceover will kind of tell you where you belong. And if you start booking a ton of work in the B2B space, then yeah, that's where you fit for the most part.
Totally. So something I think while we're waiting for more questions to come in, something else that I heard in the 21 questions interview, and Dan, I think you have maybe a particular insight. You have a lot of knowledge. You've been around the block a few times, and also your position as president at Wovo, I think gives you additional insight. But Mike, you shared a story about how you saw the back in the day when SAG and AFTRA were separate entities, and you saw the merging happening ahead of time. So you joined AFTRA because after they merged, SAG would grandfather in all AFTRA members. So essentially, you found a way to become part of both by joining AFTRA before the merge. For everybody who's here right now, do either of you see any sort of trends or anything that's kind of on the horizon that you could advise would be smart to either invest in or kind of to put some thoughts about getting into or make moves to stay ahead of before something happens? Is there anything kind of going on in today's world like that heading into 2023?
As far as, I can see some of the questions popping up, that my volume is low. So forgive me, guys. I'm using a mic on my computer right now. If I jump into the booth, that might be a lot better. So let me do that. You're just going to lose video, which who cares? But after this question, I'll jump in there and see if you guys can hear me better. So as far as like you talking about getting into SAG-AFTRA, like a way to segue into SAG-AFTRA, Jeff?
That could be a great question. Yeah, if that's yeah, I was kind of wondering if there's any other like if there was a similar merge happening on the horizon, or if there's something that is kind of coming up in the VO world that would be good to get ahead on while there's still an opportunity to.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
I haven't heard of anything. Yeah, I don't know of anything. I know SAG-AFTRA is pretty solidified in what they do out here, and I don't know of any other types of guilds or unions that are looking to do anything, at least that I've heard of with them. I don't know if you have anything, Dan, that you may have heard of.
I haven't heard about any merging of unions or anything like that, but joining the union is a big decision. As Mike will tell you, it's the requirements are kind of stiff. It's not cheap. It's not something you do when you say, I want to be a voice actor, therefore I have to join SAG-AFTRA. It's like the same thing with agents. Agents will come looking for you when you're making money. And when you're making money, if you want to be able to take advantage of making a lot of money at voiceover, then SAG-AFTRA makes more sense. I have my organization. We're not a union, World Voices. We're an industry association. Our job is to promote the professionalism of voiceover to the public, to make sure that they're not treating us as a dime a dozen, and training our people, our members, on the latest things that are going on, which is very, very different from a union. The advantages of joining SAG-AFTRA really have a lot to do with the type of work you do, what you get hired for, and just being a member of the union doesn't guarantee you work, and just being a voice actor doesn't qualify you to be a member of SAG-AFTRA. There's a lot of questions you've got to ask yourself if you're going to do that. It's not easy. Some of the payment requirements will drive you insane, but if it's something that is important to you for your career at the time when you are actually making a living doing it, then it's something you might want to consider.
And just checking, is my microphone a lot better now?
Oh, much better.
All right, great. Sorry, guys. I was trying to be comfortable and lazy. I'll just stand up and not be that way.
Thanks, Mike. We really appreciate it.
Of course.
So I think then, Mike, your initial impression of my question, I'd love to hear your thoughts more on to kind of supplement and piggyback, kind of when do you know like some of those milestones about when you should be considering getting into a union, or when that would be kind of a profitable investment?
Yeah, I mean, it's like Dan was saying, it's all a matter of personal preference, what you're trying to achieve. I when I was starting out, I really wanted to get into, like I said, I wanted to get into the bigger commercial world, and I knew that getting into that field or that type of work, I would have to be represented by a larger agency and to get those opportunities, and then I'd have to be already working a working voice actor, and I'd have to be in SAG, and so I worked toward that. I was fortunate at the time, like I said in the 21 questions, where I saw on the horizon there was going to be that merger. So I jumped into an already open union that would allow anybody to come in. And then they merged shortly after that. I have heard of a lot of people that are, aside from getting like their vouchers and stuff and working on SAG, franchised films that or commercials or work that they can get Taft Hartley'd in, and they kind of use that as a way to get into SAG a lot quicker, and then they can kind of continue from there. The downside is if the union finds out you're working non-union work, they will slap you on the wrist and tell you not to do it, and then eventually they could just take it away from you altogether.
Ooh, daunting.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, I
But-
haven't heard of it happening too much. And to be quite honest, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble or get anybody in trouble, but I mean, as voice actors, I think the union's pretty well aware that we got to keep the lights on, and we do kind of teeter on both sides of the fence. So, I wouldn't suggest doing it often, but we do.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always appreciate, kind of hearing. I think that everybody has a solid shot, and if they're committed, they can they can eke out a section for themselves. There's always room at the voiceover table. I also appreciate hearing that it's not a walk in the park, and this is kind of how the industry is, and it empowers you and it benefits all of us to kind of know what we're getting into as everybody is navigating and finding their spot at the table. Yeah, absolutely. So have a kind of a general expanding on Mike, I know you touched on it in the 21 questions, but when maybe you could tell us about your first job and your first acquisition of representation real quick, just a little bit more about yourself.
Yeah, you mean first job like in voiceover?
Yeah. I'd like to hear that.
I don't shoot. I'm embarrassed. I don't really remember remember it. I knew it had to be something that I captured on like voices.com or something. Yeah, I couldn't tell you. I feel like I'm old now.
So from humble beginnings, everybody.
I mean, look, I cut my teeth in the online marketplace, as I'm sure a lot of you are doing, like voices.com, Voice123, Badalgo. Those were all places that I got my feet wet. And I was capturing a lot of business from there. B2B stuff was the type of work that I was doing. I'm almost certain had to be that. I remember being excited when I was booking stuff. Like I thought I had like won the lottery. But I just can't remember for the life of me what like the first job, like what that was. But working in the online marketplace was where I definitely got that job. I could tell you that. And then I'm sorry, Jeff, what was your second question? Like,
who was your first form of representation, whether that's management or union or?
Yeah, I was represented by a smaller company out here in Los Angeles called Bobby Ball Agency. That's where I got my first like exposure to representation. From there, I was there for a couple years, didn't do very much, and then from there, I jumped over to a company called TGMD. They were, great. Only booked a couple of things there, but then things kind of blew up for me after I had a spot with Chuck and Stacy on BO Buzz Weekly, and with Atlas Talent kind of picked me up after that, and I was with them for a number of years.
Right on.
And then now I'm with DPN, and they're amazing.
That's great.
Yeah.
Dan, do you remember your first voiceover job? What's the earliest you remember?
Well, I mean, there was, I the first one I had was in a local TV commercial where I got called in to do something. That was a long time ago, but in the internet age, when I was trying to get going, I would do commercials for some local stuff. Once I discovered I could do it in my basement, I've moved on since then, but my first job was actually an audio book by a private author who wanted his stuff narrated, and there was an ad in Voice123 looking for it, and I quoted this ridiculous price, for it, And his secretary immediately called me. Is that really what you want? I'm like, no, but I got your attention, didn't I? And I ended up recording 6 different books for this guy. So that was one way I got started doing that. And once I was doing that, I was able to spread out to a lot of different areas and different genres.
Wow. How far down did you walk back on your initial pitch there?
Oh no, I walked up.
You walked. Oh.
I gave them a ridiculously low price to get their attention.
Oh, okay. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah. And the author was a business expert, and he sort of thought that was kind of smart of me back in the days when I was smart. So that was, you know, sometimes as an actor, you got to take a risk with things. And I figured, what the heck, I'll try that.
And it certainly paid off. That's awesome. I love that story. Next question we have in the room, it comes from Jenny Martin. Please unmute yourself and join us.
Hi. Thanks. Well, it was in my question, really. Totally impressed with your CBS work, because I love young Sheldon. I don't know if anyone else does, but I do. And everything else. And I looked at your interview on VO Buzz, and to me, it seems like in 6 years, you've had like a meteoric rise. And I just wondered what the secret was.
Yeah, yeah. I was pretty fortunate to kind of get, for me, in the beginning when I was starting out, I was kind of jumping in, like when the pay to plays were just kind of making their way in. I know some people hate them, but for me, they were an absolute necessity. Like, they really helped me to acquire work. I couldn't get an agent without work, and you can't get a work without agent. It's like that double-edged sword, right? So I was able to capture and do some work there. And then when I got with these agencies, or when I got with Atlas, really for me at that time, it was like, that's what really helped me to expose me to these bigger clients. You know, just having the ability to do the work and perform the auditions and stuff, that really helped me out a lot. And then forming relationships, it's like a real big relationship business that I've found. I mean, we all have talent. We're all there to try to like sell ourselves, but creating good relationships with producers and buyers, that's key, at least for me. Like, not just getting the job, saying thank you and being done with it, but just keeping the lines of communication open with them, check in with them from time to time, get their contact info, let them know that you're appreciative, you don't take it for granted. I mean, really building not just a professional, but maybe a somewhat of a personal relationship with them, that helped me a lot. And then, like with the promo stuff for like CBS, TBS, NBC, all that all came from DPN. They've got some of the best connections in the world, and that's, you know, getting in front of those buyers and stuff. It was because of, you know, their efforts to help me get in front of them.
Now, Dan will probably say, oh, no, don't ask that question. But I'm curious to know what microphone you started off with, and also what kind of, you know, did you use your closet? Did you hide under a coat? What did you do you know, you had another job. I heard you say that on BuzzVO. So did that enable you to start off with, you know, much better surroundings, let's put it that way, than lots of newbies?
Yeah.
So go ahead, Dan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, the first thing that I did some children's books like 30 years ago. And I just went in my closet and recorded them in there because I knew I didn't want to have a lot of reflection. When I started doing voiceover professionally online, I was able to set up an isolated studio in my basement with, for those of you who are in California, basement's this thing that goes under your house. I was able to build an isolated situation there, and then I moved to a closet when my wife and I traded offices, because she had an office on the second floor of our house that had a wonderful closet, and she wanted a bigger office. I said, let's switch, because I had envy of that closet, and that worked really well. And I worked in there for many years. And when I came out here to LA, I bought a house that had a recording studio in it. So
Wow.
that helped a lot. My first microphone was an Audio-Technica 3035. And I used that for many years, and then I went to a TLM 103. I've been using a 416 almost exclusively in my actual booth. Out here in my office, I keep playing around with different microphones. This is a Mojave MA50, which sounds great. But here's the thing about microphones. There is not a single dingle microphone out there in the entire universe that is going to change the way you perform copy. You don't want a crappy microphone under $150. And that's really the guideline, because other than that, you're going to sound like you on any microphone you buy that's over that price point.
Okay, thank you. And also, Mike, I was curious to know what you had when you started off.
Yeah, I don't remember the name. It was a USB mic because I didn't know any better. I just knew that I wanted to do this, and I was trying my darndest to make my way in. So I don't remember the name of it. It was a USB mic. I quickly learned that that wasn't good, and so I tried to invest in what I thought would be helpful on a budget. I shot over to the SM7, the Shure SM7B, which is a ribbon microphone. You guys thought I was low sounding on my computer. That thing has super low gain. I had to buy other equipment to beef it up. It wasn't very helpful for me. And then I jumped over to, what's that, Dan? What's that one with the gold dot in front of it? It's like
It's a Rode.
the
The
Rode.
Rode.
Thank you. The NT1A. Yeah, I used that for quite some time, and I was starting to book a good amount of work on that. I found that when I jumped over to that microphone, and I had invested in myself. I took out a loan and I bought myself like a vocal booth and paid for some more, some decent equipment. I was starting to notice that my sound was starting to it was starting to sound a lot better. And then eventually I graduated to what I'm on now, which is the microphone that I see a ton of in every studio that I go into is the Sennheiser 416, and that's what I use exclusively. I don't use anything else.
Well, I have a question. Why is this 416 so popular? I mean, I see that it says, I don't know who would, Dan, Mike, it's supposed to, it's obviously, your sound is going directly at it, so you can't move around a lot. But does it really prevent, for us people like myself, I've had to move into a condo. So does it to some degree reduce the outside sounds? I mean, I'm not going to record
sure.
with a lawnmower running, but does it help that?
Which thing is that?
She's talking about the 416.
Oh,
416.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a 416. It will rescue you in certain situations because it has a very narrow pickup pattern, and you have to think about what it was actually built and designed for, which was as a video microphone for capturing individual voices from anywhere from 7 to 10 feet away, which is what makes it such a great voiceover mic, is that you can position it a little bit closer and it will pick you up very, very nicely as you exist. And for guys that do promo, they found that if you do use a little proximity effect with it, it sounds really good for doing promo. But that's a little tiny little sliver of business that you don't have to worry about right now. But a 416 is a good overall mic for doing certain things. And I find it doesn't matter what mic I have, it's the mic that's in front of me that I'm using.
Yeah.
But a 416, is it worth it? If the question is if you have a noisy space, do everything you can to make it a less noisy space and not try and play games with technology to try and clean it up. It's better to try and learn how to isolate yourself best in order to prevent any noise floor issues.
I'm glad you said that. And if I'm hogging, question time, please just mute, get rid of me.
Go for it.
Pardon?
I said go for it.
Okay. Well, when you mentioned, obviously you have to do your best, but sometimes, especially in a condo, there could be sort of sounds and I need to do the work. So I'm talking about auditions now. There's a Clarity VX out, Clarity VX Pro, just a free Clarity VX. There's Isotope, I've got the Isotope, I've got Clarity. I mean, I've tried to understand audio engineering. I took a course on it, 6 months instead of 30 years, like the engineer that I work with sometimes, if the job is good enough. What do you think, Dan, of things like that? If I did an audition and I've done, what I usually do is roll off on a high thingy to about 100. And
Right.
then I use the Apple dynamic processor, like I do the compression at 1.75. And then I look for the level, where I should be, what do you call it? The
Your audio level, yeah.
I look at it. So where most of the average peaks are, which for me, try as I may, it seems to be about maybe 12, 13. So then I will do like not a hard knee, but a fair one. And I might bring it up by 4 dB, 5 dB. Sounds good to me, but what will it sound like to someone else? I wonder, will they, oh God, she might have gated a little bit there.
Absolutely. No, I actually had to deal with somebody who was doing this. When people send me audio specimens, I tell them I want it raw. I don't want to hear what kind of a recording engineer you are. Being a recording engineer is possibly the least most important thing you're going to do as a voice actor. Your job as a voice actor is to sound like you're not reading it and being the character. And who are you talking to? When are you talking to them? Why are you talking to them? How are you talking to them? That's the most important thing. The technology is secondary. If you set it up properly first, if you get it to the point where you have a really nice physical low noise floor and you use your microphone right and you set your levels right initially, don't worry about all this other stuff. I think people have been sucked into this rabbit hole of, oh, all this technology can make you sound great. The fact of the matter is, as a lot of people say, ask for what's called broadcast quality. Broadcast quality to me means it doesn't sound bad. And there's an awful lot of things that can make audio sound bad. And using way too much processing is one of those things. You do not want an engineer to know that you are using any processing because, one, they don't want you futzing with it. And two, if you don't understand what it's doing, how it's doing it, and why you should use it, then you shouldn't use it. Do everything you can physically to get your sound right. That's one of the things that I teach. And when I work with people, we work to get the sound in your studio the way it's supposed to sound without you adding or subtracting or all these other things. You sound the way you do because that's the way you sound in the environment in which you record. So make sure your environment is by far the best that it can possibly be, and by somebody who knows what it's supposed to sound like, my acronym WHISTLE, and there's a way it's supposed to sound, and it can be very, very consistent across a lot of different studios, even though each individual home voiceover studio needs to be sort of custom made for that person. Every voice is different. Every room is different. So each individual studio needs to be tuned to that particular person. But I'm not a big fan of a lot of this stuff. Those are tools for producers and audio engineers, not for voice actors, unless you have a really good experience of, people who went to Full Sail recording school or something along those lines. But recording engineers are not in your closet. So what you need to do is do what's best for your physical layout. And if things need to be added, learn what they do. Don't guess, because you're really making a mess for yourself. And a lot of producers are going to go, they've obviously got a noisy booth, and we need to let's find somebody with a better booth.
Thank you. I really appreciate everybody's input, Mike. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Didn't mean to go
thank you.
on and on about that, but it's like
It's what you do.
It's what I do.
It's what you're great at. And Ginny, thank you so much for an amazing slew of questions. Really appreciate it.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah. All right. Great. Moving along. The next one we have comes from Frank Dozier. Or Dozier. Not sure if I'm saying that right, but go ahead and come into the room. If you're still with us. Frank? All right, if going once.
Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, I'm here.
Oh, good.
What did I write? Actually, my question's about frustration. I'm on Voices all the time, voices.com all the time. I do tons of auditions, and I haven't gotten a job yet, but I did one the other day that was literally the best audition I've ever done anything, the best recording of anything I've ever done. And I'm so proud of it. And I woke up today to see they didn't even listen to it. Like, there's one thing about frustration by not getting jobs, but not even getting listened to. That's like
Yeah.
I'm like down in the dumps right now. Like, how do you deal with that?
Yeah, man. It's
Where's my
how much time you got? So I when I was first starting out, and that was the only way that I had to kind of put myself out there. I like you, man. I'm investing money in myself. I'm paying this platform, you know, hundreds of dollars on top of when I book jobs. When I'm lucky enough to book jobs, they're taking a commission on top of that. Or they don't call it a commission; they call it a what do they call it? An escrow fee or something like that. You know, and then to not even get heard by people, I was extremely frustrated too. It happened a lot. What I did in that moment, for me, it's that the algorithm of that site, they treat it like a numbers game. I feel like the more you do, I felt like I was getting throttled a little bit. So I ended up jumping over to a platinum tier. And when I did that, I was given a ton more exposure, and I was finding that I was getting listened to uh, almost every time, which of course meant more money. I'm not sure how they do it now. I've heard they've changed how they do things, but you know, for me, getting back to your initial question, which how do you deal with the frustration? You know, there's really nothing you can do about that. That's kind of the nature of the beast for those things. You're literally swimming with so many people in this big sea of voice actors, and it's only gotten bigger since when I jumped in there. I'm sure it's like just there's so many now. But you know, for me, like I relied on my friends. Like Bo Stevenson's a really, really good friend of mine. We talk on the weekly, if not daily. He was my partner in crime on the VO Buzz weekly episode that Jeff posted in the chat. Just talking to him, man, just being like, you know, same thing, dude. I just knocked out one of the best auditions I've ever done, and they haven't even heard it. And just kind of leaning on the guys around me, and just keep putting yourself out there as much as you can. Like doing as many auditions as you can that you feel you're suited for. Don't just do everything that you want to do to grab money, but do what you think you actually sound good at, so that you give them the best of you. And I feel like it will start coming. It does take time. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And once you get that momentum of that snowball kind of just rolling down the hill, the when you start booking jobs, more jobs will come. You know, you start getting put in their little queue of people that got recently hired. They see that, they put you at the front of the list kind of thing. You get heard more, and then you start getting booked more. At least that's what I found to be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of all the pay to plays, especially that one particular one you mentioned, because their algorithms are designed to frustrate people. Aside from not giving you all the money you're supposed to be getting from what the talent seeker is trying to pay the talent, they've set up a system. If you notice, if you look at their algorithms, and you know, and you were saying, Frank, that you know you're not getting listened to. They put that thing there to get a psychological reaction from you, like, oh, okay, then I've got to do something better. Stop letting them play games with you like this. The fact of the matter is, you pay a fee to them. You should not have to pay a larger fee to prove people that you're better than everybody else. I find that to be really nutso. But they're working on people's, you know, vanity, the idea that they want to be stars, and they're like, well, pay us more money, we'll make you a star. I find that so incredibly unethical. But if that's the way you're going to find work, then that's what you got to do. I started with them many years ago, 20 years ago. I remember actually going into their office, because their office is in London, Ontario, when I was living in Buffalo, which is like an hour and a half drive. And they introduced me to their whole staff as somebody who was on the whiteboard before they actually did everything. But when they changed to a managed uh, a managed job format where they could cherry pick anybody they wanted, which is why even if your audition was really good and it didn't get listened to, they already had an idea of who they wanted to present to the client. They had total control over it. They're acting as an agent. They're acting as a paymaster. They're acting as all these things, and they're chipping a little bit of the money each that you earn as a voice actor if you happen to book that job. But mostly they are cherry picking their best talent that has given them the most money and also is somebody who will easily book for them to make them look good. They do not care about voice actors. They care about their pocketbook, and they're manipulating everybody into doing this. So that may not be the best place for you. The best place for you is on the phone, on email, doing your homework, doing your research, and you finding the work, not somebody else trying to find the work for you.
Well, I'm going to piggyback that a little bit if you guys are okay with that. I agree with about 90% of what he's saying. They definitely dip into every facet of everybody's pockets as much as they can. They are in a business of making money, just like we all are. The area that I think that I might differ a little bit in opinion, and I don't even work on these websites at all, really. Like I might be on there still, but I haven't dipped into them in quite some time, just because I'm fortunate enough now to be represented by some amazing people, managed by some great people, and they get me a lot of opportunity. But like you guys, like we're all looking for work, right? Like how do we get the work? For me, the path of least resistance at that time for me was those online marketplaces. I didn't find that email and cold calling and stuff really did much for me. Maybe I wasn't doing it right, but I didn't find that it had the most yield on return for my time. I was putting in a lot of time trying to get in front of people, and I wasn't getting that much back. For me, when I was jumping on these sites and putting up money, I was getting a pretty decent return. Eventually I was making $10,000 to $15,000 a month on these websites, without representation. Maybe I was one of their top earners. Maybe I was getting cherry picked. Maybe that's possible. But what worked for me is like when I noticed that, some of these jobs were getting chiseled away, I would just quote what my time was worth. And the budget may say X to X. I would always go above the top scale and just be like, hey, I know you're budgeted for $1,000 or $1,500 or whatever, but I'm going to quote 2,000 or 2,500 because I knew that voices or whatever, whoever is going to stick their hand and they're going to take their money out, and the job's already getting diminished a bit. If it is a professionally managed job, like he was saying, they do take more money there. But what's my time worth? And that's what I would put out there. And if they want me bad enough, they're going to pay that. And if they don't, oh well. Like I'll move on to the next one. As you guys can see on those things, there's a ton of opportunity on there to get jobs. So I got my start there. It helped me get to where I am. I don't poo-poo them too much. I think they've veered quite far from what they originally wanted to start to do. They got more money hungry, I think, but for a lot of us that are just starting out, I think it's still a good place to get exposure.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That if you're starting out, you've got nowhere to go, so you've got to have access to the marketplace, and that is one of the places. But there are other pay to plays that perhaps don't have quite as large a membership, and they don't manipulate it quite as much.
1,000%. Yeah.
Yeah,
I think too, like when you're paying money too, the way I look at it is this: like you're gonna have to spend money on your marketing. Any business that you create, you're gonna have to spend money to do it. Whether it's an ice cream shop, a restaurant, you're gonna spend money to build that up. If you are the business, if you're the one you're putting money into, then put money into yourself. You're gonna have to spend money on keywords and advertising, all that stuff for SEO to boost up your presence online. These websites, as much as I don't like some of their practices, they have invested a ton of money into boosting their online presence up so that when you type in voice actor or female voice actor, male voice actor, whatever, they're usually the first ones that pop up. So as much as I don't agree with some of the stuff they're doing, I'd much rather spend my advertising dollars that I would normally put for myself, that I'm already competing with these guys. I might as well put it into that. There's going to be a ton more opportunity. I'm a part of that search engine now. I'm going to get found sooner. And if you're going to be spending a ton of money on that, why not funnel to something that can give you a much faster return on your money? That's the way I looked at it. That's how I kind of made it right in my head, and it seemed to work out for me.
I love all of this stuff. This is so meaty and like so much at the core of what it means to be a voiceover actor. We want to find that balance of, we are here to work and we are here to make money. This is a business. We have to know our worth and we have to be able to navigate this industry in the way that best suits us and best make sure that we're taken care of. And we have to know our worth and we have to be assertive in any venue. And we also have to try not to like rip down the coal mine as we're forging our way through behind us, and dilute the entire industry as well by, we run the risk if we do like kind of bend over backward or, sell ourselves too shallow or too low, then we kind of bring everybody else down. So
It's true. I mean, even the union, as much as I love the union, I do 99% of my work is union based. I've noticed even the contracts that they've negotiated they always try to put us at the forefront. I love that. But there's been, Dan, you've been in this a lot longer than I have. I'm sure you've seen just a gradual decline in the reimbursement rates and structures of how we're getting paid. It happens everywhere. It's not just, in the non-union world. It happens across the board.
Well, yeah, there's been a continuous race to the bottom because there's so much stuff out there and there are so many people in the business. It's sort of devalued what we do. So the value that you bring to it is study, learning how to be a better voice actor, and just doing what you do best, because that's the bottom line in getting work. How are you doing something differently from everybody else? Mike Brang has a very unique voice. He has a very unique approach to how he does stuff. He doesn't sound like everybody else. And that's the thing that's most important. Because when you get down to that, all of these other details tend to become very secondary. What is your competitive point of difference? That's the thing you have to understand and exploit.
And Mike, to quote you and something you said, relationships. I think the connections and you make along the way, can be oftentimes just as, if not more valuable than just raw talent.
Oh, 100%. I've got clients that I've worked with. I've been on Toyota and Chase and all these other campaigns for for a long minute. And I don't take it for granted. I'm scared to wake up and be like, oh man, do they drop me and use me or use somebody else? I honestly, I attribute that to the relationships that I've built. In my opinion, there's a million different people that sound way better than me. I think it's just the time that I have given to the relationship aspect of the business. It just seems to really serve me well, you know.
Absolutely. Frank, I hope that helps. You definitely have spurned a very intriguing conversation, and I hope that helps with you the kind of blues you're feeling right now. All right, awesome. I think we have time for one more question. We're about 5 minutes away from the top of the hour, and we have one more on the fry cooker, so to speak. So before we get to that question, just want to do a little quick shout out. Dan, where can folks find you? I know you said at the beginning, but one more time for good measure.
You can find me, and Jeff put it in the chat there. It's homevoiceoverstudio.com. If you really want to learn how to do it right and how to do it fast and then go back to being a voice actor. So check that out.
Awesome. And then Mike, where can folks keep up with you and check in to see all the good stuff that you have done over the years?
My website's a pretty good place to go. It's MikeDoesVoices.com. If you guys ever want to reach out, if there's something that you haven't thought of, or if you're like me, you get off a call and you're like, oh shoot, I could have asked that. Reach out to me via email. It's Mike@MikeDoesVoices.com. I will do my absolute best to get back to you as soon as possible. I usually, I tend to get back within a day or so. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I still get stuff posed to me from the VO Buzz Weekly interviews that I did 6-7 years ago. And I'm happy to help any way that I can. I know when I was coming up, like I spent so much time and money in a lot of the wrong places. I wish I knew Dan back then. I probably could have just shortcut myself to the front of the line audio stuff, because audio was my biggest like Achilles heel. You know, yeah, just if you have anything that you want to know about me or anything that I can try to help you with, I'm not a coach. I don't do coaching, but I can definitely share my experience and tell you what worked for me. I'm happy to do it. I think Carlos, who's in this chat right now, will tell you that, you know, I'm happy to give up, you know, anything that I can to give you guys any nuggets that I can be helpful with, you know.
Amazing. And that shines through, Mike. Both of you are real gems and gents, and it's clear that you really thrive on helping people, and that's why it's so awesome to hang out with you. Real quick at the dojo, we just started a new session, so that means new classes. We've also launched a new version of our intensive. It is now split into two parts. So there's the guided modules. Is called You Should Do Voiceover. It's now split into two parts called You Should Do Voiceover Launchpad, which is a series of self-guided modules, as well as a workouts portion for putting those modules into practice with guidance from one of our senseis, typically Tish. So that is You Should Do Voiceover workouts. I'll put a link to those in the bottom below, but there's plenty more going on at the dojo. We're just getting started for 2023. We have more Q&As coming up. We do this once a month, the first Wednesday of each month. We have more pro fight clubs, which is our fun but friendly competition on the working pro level, a bit like American Idol, but with voiceover. And it's a great way to practice your skills in front of a decision maker, like a casting director or a producer or a director in the VO world, and to get some real live feedback from somebody who is doing the job. So with all that being said, next week's Fight Club is with Brent. So with that, the final question we have, thanks for everybody so much for coming. Carlos Span, go ahead and pop in, and I think we can keep this fairly concise. Carlos Span had a question.
Hey, Carlos, you muted, buddy.
Oh, there we go.
There it is.
Yes.
Hi. Yeah, so, you know, I've been doing voiceovers for 15 years on the side or whatever, because I have a full-time job also. But it's time to move to the next level. And got a shiny new demo done after working with some of the greatest coaches ever. I'm seeking representation. What do you say to these agents? I've heard so many things. How do you get an agent, Mike?
For me, when I was self-promoting and I put myself out there, I didn't really get very much. I didn't get much of a response. I got into BBA initially because I went to a workshop or a class out in LA, and the person that was putting that on was the actual agent from the agency. So getting in front of him and being able to do workouts in front of him and all that with, you know, in a group setting was really helpful for me. And then it, you know, kind of uh, I built relationships with other like casting directors and producers and stuff here in LA, in coaching, that really liked, I guess, what I was doing, and I leaned on them a little bit. And I said, hey, you know, I kind of feel like I'm at the point where I could, you know, really excel with an agency, a better agency, or I shouldn't say better, with a different agency. And they reached out on my behalf and said I would give you the highest recommendation. And I was super, you know, happy about that. And they put me in front of these guys, and I sat down, and after I got in the room, I was able to get signed. So you know, I find that when you pay people for their time and you kind of, you know, you're helping them, they want to help you, if you're obviously, if you're good. So like, and I know you're amazing, Carlos. I've worked with you before at Fox, and you know, we've done good stuff together. But like working with really good you know, coaches and stuff that are you know, dialed in with the industry, and then having them get you in front of these people helps a lot. You know, if you're just like any old person shooting an email, sometimes you get overlooked, but when you come with a recommendation, it helps a lot.
Sweet.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. No, that's, I don't know, so much stuff runs through your mind when you're like, oh my God, I want to do this. I want to win.
Yeah. And getting an agency doesn't guarantee you'll get work, man.
Right.
It's a grind for sure.
Right.
But they do traditionally have access to the higher paying jobs, the campaigns, the union stuff that you're not seeing, that you would get on your own. So, getting with an agency was a huge goal for me. I did, and it's worked for me really, really well.
Okay. Sweet.
All
Thank you.
right. Thank you so much, Carlos. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today. This has been Ask the Sensei at the VO Dojo. Thanks so much for coming. Mike, Dan, a pleasure to have you. Thank you so much for your insights and guidance and advice. And I know I took plenty of nuggets with me today. And this is always awesome and a great time. So happy New Year, everybody. Thank you all so much for coming.
Thanks, everybody.
Toodaloo.
We'll catch you on the next one. Bye, all.
Bye-bye.